Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this February the 7th, 2023 City Council meeting. As usual, we will start with our chaplain prayer and pledges. So we ask, please, if Gary and Marcella Jenkins could come forward and lead us not only in the prayer, but the pledges.
Good morning, everyone. Bow your head as we pray. Dear God, in the scriptures you have said that the citizens are to obey the governing authorities since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, if I pray for our Mayor, Brenda Gunter, for the various levels of city officials, and in particular for this assembled council, I'm asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern among the conflicting interests and issues of our times. I pray, Father, that as the agenda is discussed and policies are put in place for our city, that the council will always seek what is in the best interest of the people. I also pray, Father, that we will uphold what is moral and rational. Remind us, Father, that they are in a position not to be served, but to serve the public, just as Jesus, who is King, came not to be served, but to serve and ultimately die on the cross to save us. God, please protect first offenders from all hurt, harm, and danger. Lord, please watch over this city and bring love, unity, and peace among the citizens. It is in your most blessed name I pray. Amen and amen.
Amen. Will you repeat the pledge after me, please? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
With no proclamations today on the agenda, we will move immediately into our public comment. Issues or concerns not on the regular agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, address all comments to the dais, begin by stating their name and address or single-member district number, and limit their remarks to less than 3 minutes. Do we have citizens in the audience today who would like to come forward and offer public comment? If so, please do.
Zane White, District 6. During my January 17, 2023 appearance here, I ended my public comments with a formal request that the local municipal scandal, which I've exposed for the last 12 months, be placed on an upcoming council agenda. The City of San Angelo's 17-year illegal refusal to appropriately enforce sign code regulations against Lee Pfluger at his downtown Cactus Hotel is a serious matter of public interest. But this council knows very well that if it puts me on an upcoming agenda, I'd irrefutably expose your corruption entirely. Why won't City Attorney Teresa James simply provide an appropriately detailed legal explanation regarding Supreme Court decisions which are allegedly preventing the city from issuing sign code violation citations to Lee Pfluger? It's because Teresa knows her excuse is a sloppy, ridiculous scam. If council disbelieves that, put me on the next agenda, and not only will I prove it, Teresa will prove it herself. After being officially informed that this council has absolutely no obligation to place any citizen-requested items on its agenda, I attended the January 27th meeting of San Angelo's Design and Historic Review Commission. At that meeting, DHRC board members granted Lee Pfluger an unheard-of regulations exemption for Cactus Hotel awning project. It's now a matter of record that Pfluger confidently attempted to deceive the DHRC board with multiple unethical and/or illegal actions and statements. As a classic example of how untouchable Pfluger knows he is in San Angelo, Pfluger, who knew he was being video recorded, attempted to preemptively prejudice the board against me by approaching the chairman during an intermission to loudly mention a previous unflattering private communication they shared about me. Pfluger subsequently attempted to justify his corrupt maneuver to the board. Somehow the city chose to redact Pfluger's corrupt activity from the final video release. Among other corrupt moves by Pfluger at the DHRC meeting was him claiming that the reason the rooftop sign wasn't renovated yet was that he first needs to make the Cactus Hotel habitable, livable, and safe. Pfluger also pulled an arrogant power play by revealing there's, quote, a $10 million commitment to the city to the Cactus Hotel. Any officials here care to share the details of that arrangement? Or is that confidential between you and Pfluger? You people will continue to deny every allegation I've made about your corruption, but you cannot deny that City Manager Daniel Valenzuela is facing 2 potential criminal indictments for his attempts to silence me in August
You'll
of
wrap up your
22.
comments, please.
In August of 22.
Mayor, if I may, please.
Yes, please.
First of all, the corruption against me, I've had the Texas Rangers come in because you requested that. They've investigated your allegations. They found nothing. The DA's office is not taking this case because there's nothing there. You come up here and you allege so many different things. Teresa's already explained to you by email.
No, she hasn't.
Oh, yes, she has. So at this point, even our council member Tom Thompson explained, and you laugh at that because you want your
I
interpretation.
laugh at it because it was full of lies.
Yeah, you want your interpretation understood, and only your interpretation, but you're not an expert in the law, sir.
It's the other way around.
No, you're not
actually.
the expert in the law.
Right.
So I'm not going to stand here and argue with you. I just want to make sure that I make my point. You're not the expert in the law. We have experts in the law, have already interpreted, and have already explained why we can't do what you want us to do against Mr. Pfluger.
There's such a thing as an incorrect interpretation by experts of the law, just so you'll know. And that's what's happening here.
Okay, so you're the experts, so you've had legal training, I'm sure. I take
No,
it you've had legal
I'll
training.
go ahead and get someone at a higher level
Okay,
to
you
do
do that,
that.
sir,
Oh,
but
I absolutely will.
Okay, I'm not going to argue with you, sir, but at this point,
not
you're coming
arguing
up
with
here
you, I'm
making,
just stating
you're making
facts.
allegations that are false, and I
No.
just want to make sure that I make that very clear to
Okay.
the public, okay?
Well, my allegations will be borne out, and I'll be completely vindicated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Count on it.
More public comment, please.
Morning. I am Mike Burnett, and I reside in Single-Member District 1. I'm not sure why walking up here makes me so nervous. I've talked to you all individually all the time. Back in November, I spoke to council regarding the situation of our homeless, with our homeless neighbors. At the time, I asked for council to consider creating a shelter task force and adopt a homeless bill of rights. Both of these measures will go far to help those experiencing homelessness, and I still feel strongly that more conversation and action is needed along those lines. However, today I'm here to thank the city for stepping up and coming to the aid of those in need. During the recent cold weather, the city of San Angelo has opened an emergency warming shelter and allowed those in need to be sheltered during the coldest night of the winter. We're anticipating another cold spell later this week, and the item on today's consent agenda will allow more complete planning and preparation for the operation of the shelter. I'm a believer in government and how it exists to benefit those under its care, but more importantly, I'm a believer in people who inherently want to do the right thing. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't always easy, it isn't always cheap, and it doesn't always make the populace happy. To quote Ted Lasso, doing the right thing is never the wrong thing. And I want to thank the city for doing the right thing in this instance. Is it the best plan of action? Time will tell. But it is the best plan of action for the given circumstances and making the best use of available resources. In the long term, having both a fully functioning emergency shelter and a homeless shelter will go far in addressing the needs of our homeless community. To quote Ted Lasso again, I am a believer in believe. I believe that the community of San Angelo, from the city government to all areas of our city, both public and private, will rise to the challenge to help those in need. I believe that the residents of San Angelo will be a part of this work. I believe in the best of humanity, and this is our chance to show it. Please know that I and countless others in the social services sector of our region want to help with the work. We're ready to partner with the city. Many hands will make light work. You, the City Council, were given a challenge, and you are working to make good. I appreciate that, and I thank you for your work and your continued work to benefit all who call San Angelo home. Thank you.
Further public comment? Any further public comment? If not, we will move into the consent agenda. I will start with Larry. Do you have an item to pull off the consent agenda? Karen?
In.
In. Lucy?
Aye.
I. I'm going to pull G. Harry?
Oh.
Tom?
I'm good.
Tommy?
No, ma'am, I had N as well, so
Okay.
we got it.
May I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda with the exception of items G, I, and N? May I have that motion?
So move.
So moved by Karen. I assume Harry seconded that. And any public comment on the consent agenda with the exceptions of I, G, and N, or G, I, and N? With none? Or are you coming forward, Brian? No. Let's take a vote. Oh. All in favor of approving the consent agenda with the exception of items G, I, and N, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. And by the way, it's great to have everyone here today.
Full team.
All right, we'll start with item G. Consider resolution accepting the San Angelo Police Officers Coalition as a recognized police association representing the majority of police officers with the San Angelo Police Department per the filed petition. Brian, you're on.
I guess just whatever questions you have. I have a lot of folks here. I think Noel's here. I think Chief Howard, Teresa are here to help me answer the questions that you might have.
Explain it to us.
I can explain it to you. At the time that Meet and Confer was first approved in San Angelo, the City Council recognized the San Angelo Coalition of Police as the bargaining agent for the officers, as is required under the statute. Since that time, that entity has been reorganized as the San Angelo Police Officers Coalition, right? Which, so they just changed the name, but they combined two into one. And so because it's a different entity, you guys need to re-recognize that entity so that we have the opportunity to meet and confer with them.
So are you saying by passing this, we automatically are signing up for Meet and Confer?
No,
Or are
not-
we just acknowledging the organization as a new organization under a new name?
We are just recognizing the new organization as the entity we would meet and confer with were that to occur.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Further questions for Brian while he's here? All right, I know, because we've gone back and forth on Meet and Confer, yes, no, so I think questions just exist about Meet and Confer, so we'll deal with that later.
Yeah, that process will be separate.
Okay, that's what I need to know. With that, I would please ask for a motion to approve item G.
So moved.
So moved by Tommy, seconded by Larry. Public comment concerning item G. Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hearing no noes, we will move on. That motion passes 7-0, so we will move on to item I. Consider a resolution to allow the Concho Valley Homeless Planning Coalition to use the Carl Ray Recreation Center as an emergency warming station. Bob, you're on.
Yes, ma'am. As you know, we did open the Carl Ray Center this past cold spell, and it worked relatively well. Unfortunately, we don't have other shelters for our homeless community, so what we're asking the council is to provide us long-term use of the facility as needed.
The
The reason I had, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The reason I had pulled this was because I wanted it to be public information to our viewers so they would know that this is what San Angelo is doing for the homeless during this weather. And also, can you tell us about how many people actually come to the Warming Center?
Could we identify that two ways? One, the number of people who spend the night, or two, the people who just come to use facilities and food?
Sure.
The difference in those numbers, please.
Sure. We actually have several efforts. We have what we call Out of the Code, that's managed by the Salvation Army, and we have Into the Warmth, managed by the Homeless Coalition. These two programs actually provide hotels for some of our homeless individuals. What we get is the leftovers, if you will, because we have limited use of hotel rooms. And because of that, excuse me, and because of that, we need additional facilities. And that's what this does. We had an average about 20 or so. One night we almost maxed out. We had 28 show up. So we feed them, we provide food, water.
Those 28 spend the night or just come for food and water?
Most of those spend the night. We have a few that do come in, take a shower, eat, and then leave. And they hunker down in their encampments, if you will. But for the most part, they do stay. And I think the lowest we ever had was 16 in one night.
I move to approve as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Harry. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With none opposed, item I has been approved. We will now move into item N, consider resolutions calling and ordering the May 6, 2023 elections, authorizing the execution of an agreement for election services with Tom Green County Elections Administration, and authorizing the city manager to execute all related documents for, 1, a general election for single-member district council members 1, 3, and 5, and 2, a special election reviewing the chief of police provisions in the city charter. Heather, you're available. Karen, I think you pulled this one. Do you have questions?
I did, and I pulled it specifically because I would like clarification on language for item 2 under N, that I believe it designates that only members of our force that are lieutenant and above can be considered for police chief or can elect to run for police chief. And that, originally, this was presented to us as giving us a candidate pool of 60 people. But in fact, if we designate it must be lieutenant or above, it reduces the candidate pool to 8. So I see Assistant Chief Howard here. He can probably clarify for us what would happen if perhaps we made it sergeant and above.
Good morning. Assistant Chief Howard, San Angelo Police Department. She's correct, and Teresa can help me out with this also. In the first bullet point in the Exhibit B, it does say lieutenant or above. If that word was changed to sergeant or above, it would expand the number of people that could run. And I believe it was presented to council that there would be a pool of 60 people eligible, but this specific language does narrow it to 8. And so we just wanted to point that out to council for your
I think the whole
consideration.
idea with this city charter review on this issue was to raise the standard of, or raise the qualifications for any candidate who wanted to run for police chief. So I see it as that would be accomplishing our goal, and that was to raise what we expected out of the candidate pool. So if it goes from 8 to 60 or 60 to 8, then it says that we're expecting higher qualifications for any candidate running for this office.
I just wanted to point that out for your consideration. I know it was presented as 60 plus, and that narrows it down to 8, so just to make you aware.
Thank you. Any other public comment, Tommy?
I was just going to say, if my memory is correct, I can't name all the police chiefs we've had, but we have had some come from the sergeant ranks, if not more than some, maybe a lot. So my preference would be to have the sergeant and above, since it was presented to us that we would have a candidate pool of 60. So my preference would be to amend that lieutenant or above to sergeant or above.
I just want to clarify, I think the 64 number came from, that's the number of people who have the Master's Peace Officer Certificate. When you add in the rank, it does limit it, and I'm not sure there'd be 64 even if we have, is David still here, even if we included sergeant in that. But I told David, I'm always happy to, support sergeants. I think that they are where the rubber meets the road in a police department, and I'm happy to change that.
She's correct. I'm sorry. The number would be 26. There's 26 sergeants plus 8 lieutenants, so there would be
It's not the 60, it'd
it's
be
not the
26
60.
plus 8, so
That's
you're
correct.
looking at 34.
That's right.
Okay, that's a big difference.
I just want to make clarification, though. It'd have to be a sergeant then with a master's certification, correct?
Yeah, the way it's written, it would be 10 years of a sworn police officer, 5 years demonstrated performance in a supervisory capacity of a sergeant or above in a similar-sized agency, and a Master Peace Officer certificate, or 4 years of military service.
So I think that it makes sense to make sure we put in there the master's language. Is that correct? Okay, so Teresa, how would that language read?
I think, just as I just read it, we would just change the word lieutenant in the qualifications to sergeant. So it would be 10 years as a sworn police officer with a minimum of 5 years demonstrated performance in a supervisor capacity, sergeant or above, in a similar-sized agency, and Master Peace Officer certificate from the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, TCOL, or a bachelor's in criminal justice or 4 years of military service. So if you don't have the master's certificate, you have to have the military service or a bachelor's degree in criminal justice.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so the language, as Teresa just read it, we would ask in this motion that that language change to that language instead of the language as presented here. Is that the motion?
Yeah, sergeant or above, and then everything else remain the same.
Okay.
I'd make that motion, Mayor.
Okay, Tommy made that motion. May I have a second? Larry seconded. Public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of changing that language, say aye.
Aye.
With no nays, item N passes 7-0. That concludes our consent agenda. We will move into the regular agenda. Comments regarding items on the regular agenda may be made by the public when each item is discussed as outlined above. Applicants, proponents, and appellants are exempt from the time limit above and instead must limit their remarks to less than 5 minutes. Item A, consideration of an item to reconsider the abandonment of approximately 4,060 feet of the right-of-way of Cox Lane, beginning near 1861 Cox Lane and extending 2,330 feet to the west, then 1,750 feet south, ending approximately 320 feet north of the intersection of Sunset Drive and Foster Road. John, you're on.
Thank you. This, just to be clear, this item is not considering the abandonment of Cox Lane. It is merely a vote on whether to reconsider it and hold a new hearing and vote, which would not be today. It would be at a subsequent meeting, likely the next meeting. And as you may recall, at the last meeting for that item, we only had 5 council members present. The City Code of Ordinances does allow for a vote on reconsideration. I think because there were only 5 voting, there were 3 in favor and 2 opposed. The request before you is to reconsider that at a future meeting with the full contingent of council members to make that decision.
One of my requests, and I would support doing this, but one of my requests is to make sure that we have the potential developers of this make their presentation, because it's sort of the egg before the chicken before the egg conversation. We talked a lot about abandonment of Cox Lane. We didn't talk about development, and you can't approve a plat unless you address some of the issues, correct? But we focused on the abandonment, not the plat, and the alternatives that would exist in a plat for alternative routes. And so I think it's really important that we really relook at this item and make a full presentation as best you can without the plat being approved of the alternative streets that would be available other than Sunset and/or Parkview, which was of concern. So I want to make sure we have that, and that presentation is a focus. Got to be a piece of it. And I know the plat won't be approved, but they can't do a plat till we do this. But we got to look at the plat and say, what are the alternatives?
We can definitely contact them and make sure they, in fact, I think some of them are here today as well, if you have questions for them today, but I'm sure they'd be happy to bring more information about their proposed development, although I would caution that you are only approving or not approving the abandonment. You're not approving a particular development plan as part of what you would be doing.
We know it's not an approved plat.
Right.
But people are very concerned about issues, and the issues cannot be addressed or looked at unless we understand a preliminary ideal plat that would be laid out. Sure. So I get it, but we got to look at the whole picture, not a piece of the picture, in order to resolve the issue.
Mayor,
Yes.
that also brings to light, which is a totally separate issue, and that is drainage. We have a huge drainage issue on Foster. So I agree with you, but I would, if next meeting this can come back and we can have the big conversation about all of this, even though it is not directly related to this, we've got drainage issues on the development itself that people are concerned about. We have drainage issues on Foster that folks are concerned about. So if we need to take, maybe not next meeting, but the meeting following that, in conversations, John, with you and the developer, to the mayor's point, let's get the full picture, even though we're not going to be approving a specific design. When this comes to us, it's only going to be the abandonment. Let's get as big a picture as we can.
Because we know when laying out a new plat, they've got to address drainage issues. That's just part of the requirement. So that can't get approved until that has happened. So we need a complete overview of the potential development that would address many of these issues.
Let me make a motion, Mayor, and see
Yes.
see where it goes, because
Okay.
it may not go anywhere. I would move that incorporating everything we've discussed here, the drainage, the potential and possible design of the development itself, drainage on the development itself, and this may be a city issue alone, but the drainage on Foster, that let's let staff work with the developer and bring it back whenever they are ready to present. Let's don't, in my opinion, let's don't put them in a box and say in 2 weeks, because they may not be able to do that in 2 weeks. So let's let them, if it's the next meeting, whatever, to get this worked through, the issues worked through.
Harry?
I would add one other thing. A number of the comments we heard were people that lived on Parkview. Let's look at see if there are alternatives to Parkview as where Cox Lane comes out. Now, I understand the people that are developing the property don't own all the way down to Sunset, but there may be other alternatives. And also, let's discuss about where that traffic's going to go. I know we've done the traffic study, but I think we need the public, the residents of that particular area to understand that not all traffic is going to go down Parkview. So we want that whole picture. And so
That
I'll
will be
second
part
that.
of it.
That'll be part of it. That's the reason I think we need to give the staff enough time, whatever that time is. If it's 2 weeks, okay. If it's 4 weeks from today, okay. Whatever that is, to bring it back to us when everybody's ready.
So just to be clear, for the record, that the motion does involve reconsideration of the decision that was made last time, but
Yes,
then
it does.
bring all that other information
Yes,
as well.
it does.
Okay.
There's a motion. Is there a second? A second by Harry. Any public comment?
Good morning, Council. Anna Bartosh, SMD1. I use Foster Road daily, and I use Cox Road almost daily. In fact, coming here this morning, I use Cox Road. And in front of me, I met 3 cars coming, and 2 cars were in front of me. So it's a highly used road. I don't know what that Capitol Heights and all the subdivision that it goes by, what other exit they have to get out of their subdivision to get anywhere. So that is one concern. The other is drainage. Y'all have done great on drainage, moving the water from one side of the road to the other. Now, what the water needs to do is get to the Concho River, and there is no conduit to get to the Concho River. It's a flat area that water is drained into, and it basically stays there. So yes, drainage is certainly an issue, and I know that's private property, but you need to figure out a way to get that water to move to the Concho River. Thank you.
Further public comment?
Here we are again. My name is Melissa Rodicus, and I live at 1601 Parkview, which is the corner of Parkview and Foster Road. So this is literally in my front yard, and no matter which way the traffic goes, if this proposed intersection happens, the cars will go past my house either in front on Parkview or on the side on Foster. So I have some major concerns, and I really appreciate the fact that y'all are willing to look at the drainage and the other issues. I sent all of y'all some videos. I'm not sure who actually got to look at them, but they show the issues that we're dealing with. And putting more traffic right in the middle of that mess is just dangerous. So I just wanted to make that point. And the thoroughfare plan was discussed at the last meeting. Parkview was designated as a collector street. I looked up the definitions of a collector street and arterial street, and per the Department of Transportation, a collector street moves traffic to an arterial street. An arterial street is a more high-traffic street with multi-lanes that moves higher capacity loads of vehicles. Our portion of Parkview will never be a collector. What was discussed last time is that it's been designated as a collector since 2000. But in 2004, part of that street, the part over the railroad tracks, was abandoned because it's going to be too difficult to ever connect that part to Knickerbocker Road. So our portion of Parkview will never connect to Sunset, will never connect to Knickerbocker. So please just look at that as well, as a consideration that maybe that designation should be changed. So, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Dorothy Helsher, Single Member District 1. I just want to say a genuine thank you for listening to our concerns from the last time. Government is to benefit those who you serve, and that seems to be what you're doing by considering all these issues and bringing them up to the attention of everyone here. I drove Southland by Cheflera and looked at the Red Arroyo. It's wide, it's maintained, it's deep. Water can flow easily. I drove back behind Cheflera in the alleyway. The Red Arroyo is deep. It's not full of trash. It's maintained. Then I drove to Schertz Garden Center. And I looked to the west. The Red Arroyo is maintained. I looked to the east. It's full of trees and cactus and garbage and weeds and debris. And I looked at the house, the buildings on Executive Drive. They're all on elevated platforms, elevated foundations. And then I drove down YMCA and down Nevada. The new houses on Nevada all have a raised foundation. I don't know if that part of the city is in a floodplain or not. Kind of looks, I don't know, I didn't research that. I just thank you for considering the drainage issues. And I thank you for considering the traffic issues on Parkview. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Hi, good morning. Brandy
Raise
Bill.
the microphone up so you don't have to do that.
Thank you. Brandy Bill, Single District 12. I live at 1605 Parkview. And I also want to say thank you very much for taking another look at this. And I would like to formally also make a request of the future information to come. I realized at the January 17th meeting that the traffic information presented to all of us, it was very difficult to try to interpret all those numbers as far as southbound, northbound, eastbound. The data that was presented to us was very difficult to read. It was not totaled up. It was 1,300 cars one direction and 1,400 cars another direction, and that, to me, that's 2,700 cars. And if the future, looking at the traffic study, if we could also consider the traffic impact, not just the count of vehicles, but how any future developments impact the traffic flow, as well as the new senior living center that's in development on Sunset. And I just thank you very much. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Further public comment? Okay, seeing none, we've had a motion and a second. We'll take a vote. All those in favor of item A as presented by Tommy, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And you'll let us know about that time frame, or I guess we won't see it until it's on the agenda, but okay. B, consider ratifying a COSA DC resolution authorizing the board president to negotiate and execute a professional services agreement with Kimley, Horn and Associates Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $83,500 plus expenses to perform professional engineering and design service evaluation of non-potable fire suppression pump station at the San Angelo Regional Airport, or Mathis Field, a project authorized under Chapter 505 of the Development Corporation Act for infrastructure improvements necessary for development at Mathis Field, subject to approval of the City Council. Michael, you are on.
Morning, Mayor and Council. I apologize for the lengthy caption. I'm going to summarize this, and if at the end of the summary, if you'd like, we've got slides to go through, and I've got Bob Schneeman here to keep me on the straight and narrow and to rescue me if we get into technical issues.
And I think Jeremy's here as well, so we're good.
Several years ago, the city installed a non-potable system out at the airport to support fire suppression systems in hangars all along Hangar Row. As we see development and redevelopment in those hangars, we see additional and new fire suppression systems going in. And we anticipate, as advocates for development, I'm here representing COSA DC today, as advocates for development, we hope to see more of those systems. We're putting a strain on that system. And we want that system not to be a limiting factor as we advocate for and hopefully bring more projects for development and redevelopment. So we think we've discussed this with the water folks and with our fire folks. Everybody thinks it's absolutely appropriate that we have the system evaluated and determine both its condition and its capacity, and then determine a basis for action if any is needed. I've got some slides we can go through if you'd like to get more technical than that, but at this point, what we're proposing is having some engineers look at that non-potable system, evaluate its condition and capacity, and make a recommendation to us so that we don't get an obstacle in our way as we continue to advocate for development at the airport.
Are there questions for Michael Dane? I think we're good. So may I have a motion for approval of item B? So moved by Harry.
Second.
Seconded by Tommy. Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Item C, consider resolution nominating candidates to serve on the Board of Directors of the Tom Green County Appraisal District for the remainder of the 2022 and 23 terms. So Heather, you're on.
So every year, all of the entities that contribute.
Speak into the microphone,
I'm sorry.
please.
All of the entities that contribute taxes to the appraisal district get to nominate individuals to sit on the appraisal district's board of directors. At this time, they find themselves with 2 vacancies, so they are asking us to nominate 2 names to be brought before their board to fill those 2 vacancies for a 1-year unexpired term.
Okay. And you want to go ahead and say those names?
Sure. The names that they provided as suggestions to y'all are Scott Tankersley and Eric Wilson. You can nominate those 2 individuals, or if you have other people that you would like to nominate for consideration, you're welcome to do that as well.
Do I have any nominations from City Council at this point?
Tankerly guy's kind of a little sketchy, but we'll let him slide.
I'd actually like to nominate Terry Jackson.
Okay, so we now have 3 candidates. All right. Eric Wilson, I want to speak towards him. He owns all the McDonald's in town. So I think what we want to have on this board is someone who's in the commercial development business of the city of San Angelo and has a voice in terms of property taxes. So I would strongly encourage Eric Wilson being a candidate. He has a lot of experience in this city, has a lot of development in this city, and I think we need a broader range of those people who sit on this board.
Well, I'll speak up for Scott. I mean, I know Scott history, and he's done a lot of work with us. So with that one, I'm all in favor for Scott and going forth. I'm sorry about that, Harry, but coming in at this moment.
Any other comments? All right, so then we take a vote for the 3 candidates, or what do we do?
At this time, the city only has the opportunity to nominate 2 people.
I know, that's why I'm asking.
Sure. So you would just make a motion nominating your 2 individuals, and then we'll vote on those 2 and see what happens.
So can we nominate 2 and list 1 as an alternate?
No.
So, I'm going to make a motion to go with Scott and Eric at this point.
Any public comment concerning those 2 names? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 None opposed. Motion passes 7-0. Item D, first reading and public hearing of an ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2022, and ending September 30th, 2023, for an additional full-time parks position for the purpose of maintenance activities within the tax increment investment zones and capital expenses. You're on, Tina.
Thank you, Mayor. Tina Deersky, Director of
Don't
Finance.
ab-list, Brenda, just read.
So this is, you've seen this item before when it came to you for approval. This will be part of the amendment to allow the Tiers Fund to pay for the parks position that will maintain the Chadbourne Street corridor. That'll be $79,200 from the general fund, and then $40,000 in the equipment replacement fund. That'll be 80% in the north tiers, 20% in the south tiers, and the one-time funding is for vehicles and equipment. in
So the
capital.
reality is the general equipment replacement is not replacement, it's purchasing of new.
Yes, ma'am. That's the name of the fund, is equipment replacement, but yes,
It's
you're
new,
correct.
it's not
It is new
replacement,
equipment for that
just
position.
to be clear.
Yes, ma'am. And then the second one is here for the PFC application. This will be pulled from the PFC fund balance, the amount of $59,000. The total amount for the application is $78,460, but we have some of that available within existing budget.
Any questions for Tina/Teresa? Any questions for Tina?
I'd move approval, Mayor.
Okay,
I just
thank
want
you.
to make a comment.
Oh, go right ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that I am not in favor of this, just for the mere fact that you're taking 80% from the north tiers and 20% from the south. I never cared for those numbers to begin with, because it seems like this is just the beginning of dipping into the north tiers money. And for that reason alone, I will not be
Yes,
voting with
ma'am.
this.
Of course, you know, that was based on council direction that we
Yes, ma'am.
allocated it that way,
I
but
was
I
here and I did
understand.
not vote for that either. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? All right, we'll take a vote. All those, and yes, I'm sorry, Larry?
Is this estimate of 80 and 20%, is that based on workload by any chance? Or is it,
My budget amendment is based on council direction. The council's decision was to split it 80-20. So that was a discussion that you all had in a previous meeting on how to allocate it.
Any other questions or comments from council?
Larry, Lucy, I was the one that pushed that through,
I
just
know.
with the balance on the north, so. I know I'm not making
Well, and if
friends
you-
on that deal, but I saw the funds. If you have questions, it was mine to push that one, my motion.
All right, with that, we'll take a vote. All in favor of the budget amendments, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1. We will now move into the closed session, executive session under the provision of Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirement that meetings be open under the following sections. A, Section 551.072, deliberations about real property regarding 122.36 acres out of Survey 644, Abstract 1181, with Sporn, Hahn, and out of Survey 645, Abstract 4212, CZEC. We will now move into our closed session. Back from executive session, and there are no announcements to be made at this point in time, so we will move into the follow-up, other items on follow-up and administrative issues, which are announcements and consideration of future agenda items. Are there any?
I have one. I would like an update on the expansion of Kirby Park.
Good. Timing on it, et cetera. Yeah, good. All right, anything else?
I believe Animal Control is talking about presenting something next time, too. Just an update, as I understand it.
Okay, so with that, may I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
So moved by Tom, seconded by Lucy. All
Thanks,
those in
Lucy.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're out of here.
Thanks for the support, Lucy.
And you.